Screen printing, to me at least, has always felt like an arcane practice reserved for art school students. It's a messy manual process where creativity wrestles with patience. But just like 3D printers democratized the process of additive plastic manufacturing, the xTool screen printer is a sleek, modern solution that brings professional-grade screen printing to your desktop in a fraction of the time. Whether you're a hobbyist, a designer, or a small business owner, the xTool screen printer makes detailed apparel and textile printing super easy. Join me, James Bruce, as I take a closer look at the xTool screen printer for inmyexpertopinion.com. So included in the basic kit are a few key components. The printing press, that is where you'll mount the frame and your material to print on it. There are then 3 frames for the screens along with tensioner inserts. This keeps them taut, a set of screens and some inks, little pots of ink like this. You'll also get a frame fixing piece. This is an adapter that goes into your laser engraver and allows you to keep the frames in the same place every time, which is critical for multicolor printing. So I've been using this with the xTool S1, which you'll find a review of elsewhere on inmyexpertopinion.com. However, it's also compatible with the P2, F1 and M1 series, so you don't have to rush out and buy a new device if you already have a laser engraver. In theory, you can use it with any brand of engraver. However, the xTool software is pre-programmed with specific modes to work with the screens, and the positioning adapter won't work with other machines, so you may have misalignment errors with multicolor printing. To use the xTool screen printer, the first step is to make your framed screen. So make sure the latches are released on all sides, lay the screen into the frame, insert all of the tensioner pieces so that the screen is held tightly, and finally close the tightening latches to pull everything really taut. Finally, you'll need to remove that piece of protected card from the screen and then you're all set. Once completed, it should actually sound a little bit like a snare drum when you tap it. Engraving your design into the screen is really simple. If you've used any kind of cut or laser machine before, just make sure you have the right mode setting enabled. As a pro tip, if you're using the S1, you'll need to use the standard diode laser module, not the infrared laser. If that's installed, you won't be able to select the right settings. From there, just drag in your vector design file and resize as needed. Now note that your design will need to be reflected horizontally on the frame, which would be vertically in the software because you're cutting the back of the design out. Now, lasering away a detailed design at 240 lines per centimeter is not a quick process. This design I'm showing now took about 1.5 hours to complete. Also worth noting, it absolutely stinks. I don't think you should be breathing that in. It doesn't smell safe, so ideally a fume extractor and not just a hose hanging out of the window like I have. Now, once you're done, you'll need to use a little IPA to wipe away any residue, and then place your completed design into the screen printer itself, along with the material you're going to be printing on. Push the screen down from the back and ensure it forms a good seal against the material, then you're ready to print. This is where you need practice. I don't think I've got it down perfect yet by any means, but basically spread a little paint on, try to mostly cover the design sort of. Then you're going to use the wipe to push it through the screen. Now over time you'll probably figure out exactly how much ink you need, but until then you can easily just put any excess back into the pot for use later. Scrape it off of the screen, wipe it back in. And when you're done with your print, you can rinse the screen in the shower. Brilliant. If you have multiple colors, each of which will have been engraved on a different screen, then you should wait for your first layer to dry overnight before doing the next. But the positioning clips on the printer itself ensure an accurate print every time on each layer, or you can use these knobs on the front to slightly tweak it back into the right position if it's a bit misaligned. So how does screen printing compare to heat transfer vinyl? If you're watching this review, you're probably doing so because you're looking at ways of printing your own t-shirts or canvas bags, that sort of thing. So HTV will have come up in your research too. Heat transfer vinyl, or HTV, is a type of plastic that you can cut designs in a Cricut, or in my case, the xTool M1 cutting machine. Then you iron it onto your material, or you use a heat press like this one. This t-shirt is made with HTV. You can get a huge variety of colors, UV, glitter, even a sort of puffy fabric. And making multicolor designs just means cutting different layers out of each color and then heating one after the other. It's relatively easy to do. The more complex your design, the harder it is to weed away the parts of plastic that you've cut off that you don't need. But it's really cheap, with a roll of HTV at around $5 for a meter or so. HTV is great for one-off projects. However, the end result is not that durable. If you accidentally wash it too hot, you'll find your design has started to peel away. And if you want to do multiple copies of the same project, you'll need to cut it each and every time, weed the plastic away, heat press it again and again. Screen printing, on the other hand, can also do multiple colors. Again, you need different layers for each color. And I think with this xTool kit, it's actually no more complex than HTV for your initial production piece. If anything, it's actually much easier for complex single layer designs because you don't have to weed all those tiny pieces of plastic out. The laser is fully cut into the design. Screen printing is also much more durable in the long term because you're infusing an ink into the material rather than just gluing plastic on top. And it gives a different feel, of course. It retains a lot of the material flexibility. These silk screens cost about $10 each, plus ink, of course, so it's expensive for one-offs even with just one color. However, the more times you use the screen printer, the cheaper it becomes. Now, exactly where it tips over into being cheaper than HTV would depend on many things, but suffice to say, if you want an easily repeatable pattern, if you're making more than a few of the same design, then screen printing will be a lot cheaper, and that's on top of getting a better quality, more durable product. Now, while I haven't tested it, xTool notes that each screen should be good for about 100 prints before it starts to degrade. It is actually possible to reuse these screens, assuming the mesh underneath is undamaged. You can strip the emulsion, reapply a fresh layer, cure it with a UV lamp, and then engrave it again. But for $10, it might be worth your time to just buy more screens. So what's great about the xTool screen printer? Firstly, ease of use. The frame pulls the screen mesh taut with these simple locks and holds it perfectly in place. The frame also integrates easily with xTool laser engravers, allowing for precise multi-screen cutting as well as ready-to-use software settings. Is the xTool screen printer right for you? Who is the xTool screen printer kit for? Screen printing is a traditional craft, and purists may hate the xTool kit because it makes it too easy. It removes the barriers to entry and skill requirements, the gatekeeping of the hobby. Of course, you need to factor in the cost of a laser engraver too, so if you don't already have one that's compatible, then it becomes a lot less attractive. But if you're looking to get even more creative use from your xTool laser engraver, perhaps adding some extra products to your craft offerings, then the xTool screen printer is a brilliant purchase, starting at $300 for a basic kit with one screen frame, which is more than enough to get you started on your first designs. Hit like if this review helped you, and consider subscribing for more from myself and everyone else at inmyexpertopinion.com. Until next time.